Alright, so we have the building and we need to optimize this a little bit. So I'm going to hide this one and then I'm going to select this part and then just our bottom piece. And then just Ctrl J and join these together. And then I want to make sure that all of my vertices overlap and I can merge them by distance like that. And then I also want to close off this gap right here. So to do that, we can just make some faces here. Then just extrude that and go all the way around. And then just connect it up again like this and then merge by distance. We also need to fix this. So I can select just this loop and hit F to make a face, and then we have a end gone here. And then I'm going to hit slash to focus on this. And I also see that we have these vertices here. Hit P to select this to another object and just hide that. Alright, so with this mesh in edit mode, we need to kind of optimize this a little bit and make the edge flow nice. So as you can see, when I hit Ctrl R, try to add an edge loop here, it doesn't really work. That's not really nice. This also doesn't look really nice to me. And of course we need to connect this. So in top view mode, just going to hit K and A and C, just like we did with the roof. And just connect all of these up. And in the side view as well. For this one, I'm not going to hit C because I don't know what's behind this plane. And I noticed that these aren't actually connected. So if you want to add in a knife loop, I'm just going to call it that, the vertices have to be connected, and right now this is just a plane and they don't contain these vertices. So I'm going to delete that face, select this entire row and then these edges as well and hit F, and now they are connected. And now we can actually just go into knife mode and add in some edges here. Alright, so now everything is connected, I think. At the backside here, we have edge loops, which shouldn't be there because we have no floor. So we can just delete these. These are unnecessary. And now everything looks really clean. This one we were going to use, so we need to keep that. And what happened here? I think I accidentally pressed Ctrl T, which triangulates the faces, so just dissolving that. So to check if your mesh contains any faces that are not quads, you can just select a quad face. So I know this is a quad. Go over to select and then similar and then polygon sides. We can hit Ctrl I and then everything that's not a quad will be selected. So these are just the only ones, which was to be expected. We can fix that right now by cutting like this, but then we would have a quad which has 3 vertices on the same row, which I don't really like. I don't like faces that look like that. So I'm just going to extrude these a little bit at 0.05. And then just do it like this, so we get quads all the way around. So you kind of have to change the mesh up a little bit for the sole purpose of just having quads. It's not really necessary to do this, but I just like to have a full quad mesh. It just makes working on things a lot more easy. You can always add in a loop cut everywhere. So yeah, I think this is a really nice solution and it doesn't look weird as well. So with the bottom part done, now we can go over to the second part and join that together. And then just do exactly the same thing. So because we looked at where our windows could be and how we could connect them, this is going to be a lot easier because these are already connected now. And we just need to do the very few parts where nothing is connected. So this one. Alright, so that's the first floor connected. Now just going over to this divider bit, which shouldn't be too hard. Just do exactly the same. I want these edges to be like this. And the reason for that, why I like that, is because you can add in a loop cut here in the middle, instead of having to do 2 loop cuts. Like I can maybe show you, I'll just add in a new cube. So just extrude this and extrude this. If you were to have this, you have to add loop cuts like this. But if we can just move that like this, you can do that easily with 1 loop cut and then just move it. So I like that edge flow a lot better. You might prefer it a little bit differently, but yeah, just go ahead. Try doing it your way. It's not really wrong to do it the other way as well, so I don't actually care that much. So in the corner here, we don't need to connect it like just cutting it like here, but we can just move that to the side here. Same with this corner here, and then we can just continue normally. Alright, this looks connected. Yep, everything's connected. We can move on to the second floor, Ctrl J, and then connect it like we did with the rest of the building. Also make sure to delete any interior faces like these ones, because I couldn't actually add in a loop cut right here when I had this still here. So always be on the lookout for that. This looks all connected. Yeah, okay. Nice. Can move on to the rest of the building. You're nearing the end, and we've added a lot of geometry, but this is the best way to do this, in my opinion. We can optimize this later if we find a way to do that, but for now, this is just the easiest way to look at your mesh, to be honest. Just everything together, no loose parts. We will be making the windows a different object, but just the building itself I want to keep as one object. Alright, so now I'm just going to connect this really quickly. And this is our building. It's completely connected and the roof isn't, but it's really simple shapes. And yeah, we can continue and go over to the next step, which will be adding the windows and the doors and the rest of the building. So for doors, I always like to have that as a separate object. The house I want in one object, but then the door and the windows are just a pane to keep in one object. So I always have them as separate objects. So delete these holes in the wall. Alright, so now we have our windows cut out, just the back faces, and what I can do is just place my 3D cursor here by pressing Shift S. And then we are just going to add in another cube, and then move that 1 meter up and 1 meter to the left, and just make our door. A typical like outside door is probably about 10 centimeters, not much more than that. So we are going to keep that the same with our doors. So this will be the door, and it looks a little bit like this. We can select these faces and just extrude them in by about 0.025. Maybe that's even too much, just 0.01. And then inset these faces by about, let's see, 0.1. Yeah. Then what I can do is go and click 2 to go into edge select mode, and then Ctrl B to bevel this and kind of give this a little bit of thickness. I want this to be 0.01 thick, and then I can go over to 3, which is face select mode, and then with shift I can deselect these faces here and then extrude this out a little bit, but 0.01 again. And now we have this door, and this is pretty much what the door looks like in our reference image. And now we need to make the arch, which is pretty hard to make, honestly. All right, so for this arch, I'm just going to select these faces here and then just extrude this to about 0.6, I think. And then what we can do is just move all of these to the middle. So just loop slide them by pressing double G. And then just scale these on the y-axis to 0. Just so it looks like this, and we have these edges so we can bevel them by pressing Ctrl B. And then make this arch. We can delete these nasty faces. And now that we have our arch, we can just inset this by about 0.025. And then extrude this in. Keep this really subtle. 0.1 maybe again. Or 0.25. I think I'm going to go 2.5. And then what we can do is just get that cross section. So just extrude this up by about 0.24. About 0.04. And then bevel this with just one bevel. Move these down. And that should be good. And then we can select one of these edges here and bevel this 0.02 as well. And then just connect these by selecting these faces and clicking bridge faces. But I can see that we also have an inner circle. I did not notice that. So we can probably just add some loop cuts here. Add these loop cuts and then extrude them up to about 0.5, I think, 0.4. Something like this. We need to delete this a little bit. And then we can bevel this again. And then just move it down. Just kind of manipulate it until you have what you want. And then we can inset this with 0.025. And then extrude this in again by 0.025. And then just do the same thing I told you a couple moments ago. It's not perfect. You can kind of improve this if you want. But for me, I think this is pretty fine. So yeah, something like this. And then we can just focus on this and create these faces. These can be angles again. We can just connect it right here and add some loop cuts for the other ones. Delete these inner faces, you're never going to see, of course. Don't forget that. And then you're left with something like this. So as I said, this is not perfect, but this is about as perfect as I'm going to get. The geometry is nice. We have these quads everywhere, except for here, which sucks, but I don't think we can actually do much about it. Let's see if can we bevel it just all the way around. Just a little bit. And then just move these down. Now we have a quad, of course, yeah. Yep, that works. So now we have all these quads here. And we have a really nice door. If you want to open this door, you would probably have to add some loop cuts like right here. Here as well. And then just separate that. But for me, this is going to be static, so I'm just going to keep it like this. Alright, so now we have the arc. And now we have to make the rest of the door. And I'm just going to delete the back faces to make everything a lot easier to work with. You could always just duplicate what you have on front to the back. So yeah, and we have the door right here. And we need to make the back side. So just fill up this part. So just select the arch right here, extrude this up on the z-axis by about 1 meter, doesn't really matter too much. And then just scale on the z-axis until you have a solid plane like this. Now what we can do is go over to our building model and place our cursor somewhere along this line here. And then you might have guessed it, but we're going to scale to the 3D cursor along the z-axis. So make sure you have the 3D cursor enabled. And yeah, that's just the back wall. This geometry is not looking good, but not much I can do about it, honestly. We could maybe just dissolve these edges and create some loop cuts here. And then just connect it that way. Yeah, just connecting it like this could work. Alright, so this is our door. And that's about it. We can go over to the next part of our building, which is just these windows. And we can keep them pretty simple. Deleting these windows also gives some room for us to remove some loop cuts. And the reason I like to add the loop cuts in the first place, so early on, is just so you have the maximum amount of geometry that you need to make your building. And then after that, you can remove all the unnecessary parts. It's a little bit more clear to the user. So for the window, I'm going to select this edge right here and just hit F 2 times. And then in face select mode, select these faces and hit P and separate the selection. So we have this. I can remove this edge loop by pressing Ctrl X again, just dissolving the selection. So I'm going to extrude this plane. And I think I'm going to go with 0.01, just really small. And then add some, or just inset this face by pressing I. And then do this with about 0.05. And with Alt, I can select this edge loop and just extrude this out a little bit. 0.025. And this is pretty much just going to be the window. We can remove these edge loops and this back face as well. And what we can do is just set the origin to the corner of the room, or the window, I mean. So in the building, we can go over to this edge right here and place our 3D cursor by pressing Shift S. And then I can select my window, hit the right mouse button, set the origin to the 3D cursor. And now the orange dot will be there. And what I can do now is just go over here and Shift S, cursor to selected, and then Shift D and Shift S and then selection to cursor to duplicate my windows. So I don't have to make more of them. I can do that the same way here. Just Shift S and move that down. And a Shift D and a Shift S and then the top left. And then rotate this by -90 on the Z-axis. And we have our window there. For the door on this side, I could just Shift D and duplicate this door, but the door in the reference image looks different. So I'm going to make a different door. So we can select these faces by pressing Shift and selecting them. And then I can hit I on my keyboard to inset these faces. And then I can hit I again to get them individually. And you can read that right here. There are always some extra options at the top of your screen. So just keep that in mind. So I and I. And I'm going to do that by with 0.025, I think. Extrude them in. 0.025 again. And that's about it. Adding in a loop cut here. And insetting this as well. So I have inset that, and I want to create like a slope here. But that's really hard to do, like moving this and seeing where to move it. You also can scale this See, I can't scale this because then this part will be smaller than this part. So what I can do is hit double G and then just move it. And now it will be smooth like this. Just make this a little bit smoother. So you can do that here as well if you want, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Maybe later. But for this door, I think that looks pretty cool. And we can do the same thing with the window, the underside. There is also a thing like that. That looks about right. So now we can go over to the top floor or the second floor. And these have different windows. Otherwise we could have just duplicated these windows, of course. So I'm going to do the same thing. Just cursor here and then Shift A, add in a cube. Then move that up and move that to the side and make that as thick as the window. This one's probably going to be a lot smaller since it's the top floor. So 0.05 thickness, 0.05 meters. That seems about right. And this looks pretty much just like that door or window or whatever it is. All right, they're duplicated. And I'm just going to duplicate these again and just move them to the floor above them. But then I'm going to change this mesh a little bit. The top windows are about 3 blocks tall. So what we can do is just hit Shift Z and then in face select mode, we can just delete everything that isn't 3 faces. So like this. And then just place it in our window. And now we need to kind of move these up so they fit in the window. So with Shift Z, I can just move these up. Make sure to move the vertices itself. Don't scale it, because otherwise the thickness will vary depending on where you are. So just only move these vertices. And since we are using like exact numbers, they should be pretty easy. So something like this. They're not exactly the same size, but I think it doesn't really matter. This looks nice. And in the reference, they're not the same size either. So then just duplicate them everywhere like this. Yeah. All right, so now we have the windows or doors or whatever they are. And now we need the fences. And in the reference image, the fences look pretty ugly. Yeah, it's a miniature, so they didn't have much room to make fences. So I'm going to find some extra reference for a French balcony fence. So let's get started on that. First, I'm going to set my 3D cursor to the corner here. And then Shift A, I'm going to add in a cube and then move that up. Just the typical stuff that we've already done. Then just scale that and then move that about 0.6 meters up. And move that out, 0.1. Yeah, something like this. And then just move that out. Just pretty simple. Then we can hit Shift D and move that down 0.6 or even more. And well, that's about it for the outline of the fence. Just going to add in some loop cuts. About 5, 6 maybe. I think 7. Yeah, 7. First add in a loop cut through the middle here. And then with Ctrl B, we can bevel this to be 0.020,125. And then we can select these edge loops. And then we are just going to bridge the edge loops. So select this face and then this face and then bridge faces. If you're going to do an operation like this a couple times, you can just press Shift R and it will repeat your last operation. This will save you some time in the menus. And then we can just extrude these into the wall. And then with those faces selected, just hit X and then delete the faces because we're never going to actually see them. So it would be useless to have them. We can add in a loop cut here and bevel it the same as we did with the rest. Delete those faces. And then just kind of make like a plateau here. So you actually have a little bit of a balcony. And then just with the knife tool, we're going to cut right through them. Yeah, and I think that's enough for a balcony. Nice, so now we can duplicate that everywhere. Nice. We have the balcony, we have the windows. We need to add the windows here as well. All right, so now I think we just have the model complete, to be honest. Just going to add in a loop cut here, and then Alt S to scale this along the normal. We could also add in a small little bevel, nothing too extreme, just keeping things really nice. This is just your artistic freedom to, yeah, just see what you want to add, if you want to add anything. All right, so this is it for the modeling part, I guess. There's nothing much you can do. This is also looking good, except for, yeah, whatever. You can fix this if you want, but I don't really feel like making this really high poly. I'll probably do it off screen though. We can get on to texturing then.